Hi guys, coming at you with a video about volume. In this video, we're just going to focus on plugging into the volume formulas. First, I'm going to explain what the volume formulas are and how they work, and then I'll cover 4 examples. Okay, let's get started. Okay, we can't talk about the volume formulas without talking about the formulas for area. Volume and area are essentially the same thing. The difference is that area is two-dimensional with a length and a width, or side squared, or the radius squared, and the volume is the three-dimensional form. So, for example, if I have the length and the width on this rectangle, I can add a height off the corners, creating a prism. And I just need one height because all the heights will be the same. Another thing I could do with the rectangle and my shaky hand is I can add a height in the middle, or what is better known as an altitude. And then if I do that, I create a pyramid. These are all perpendicular. So just like the area, you need to have perpendicular sides in order to find the area or the volume, which is by definition how much space something displaces. And I could do this with any shape. I could kind of create cylinders or cans. I could create cones. And if I really want to go crazy, I could go and make a sphere, which is essentially an infinite amount of radii in an infinite amount of directions. And the volume formulas are important because we live in a 3D world, not a 2D world. A 2D world would be significantly easier. So if you see here, we could look at the area of a rectangle, and then we could create the volume of a prism by just saying length times width times height. Now, I'm not a huge fan of dimensional labels, so we could just say we're multiplying 3 perpendicular sides. Same goes for the cube compared to the square. That should be a V. We could say cubed. Now, if I want to add, a sphere, I have to add 4/3, and I might be wrong here, but I'm pretty sure the reason for the 4/3 is because a sphere is 4/3 the size of a cube. I know that the 1/3 in front of the pyramid and the cone is because a cone is 1/3 the size of a cylinder, and the pyramid is 1/3 the size of a prism. Now, the one notation I want to bring up here before we start looking at these examples is this capital B here. Please make note, at least on Georgia State tests, or the way they used to give them, they used to provide the volume formulas with a capital B. What that capital B means is the area of the base. So whatever the shape of the base is, you find the area of that, then you add the third dimension or multiply the third dimension in to find the volume. Alright, let's take a look at 3 examples. So I have a cone here and I need to find the volume of it. And so we're going to use 1/3 pi r squared times height. Remember, the area of the circle is here, which is the area of the base, with an additional dimension, and then we're dividing it by 3 because it is 1/3 the size of, let's say, a cylinder. So now I have the diameter here. So the radius is 3, and I'm going to plug that 3 in. Then I have the height. I am plugging that in. One poor habit that you are likely have been taught from middle school and elementary school that I wish would go away is that pi is 3.14. Pi is not 3.14. It never was. Pi is an irrational number that is often approximated to 3.14. And in creating or changing the symbol of pi to 3.14, you are actually making the problem more difficult. So let's take a look at why that is. Okay, I am going to square 3 and then bring the rest down. And now what I'm going to do is put everything together. And I could do this without a calculator because I am not going to change pi to 3.14. So 1/3 times 9 is 3. Then 3 times 7 is 21, leaving me with a final answer of 21 pi. Now, before I go on to my next 3 examples, let's discuss the approximation of pi 1 second. If you were doing something with the cone, let's say you were actually creating an ice cream cone or of some sort, then it makes complete, utter sense for you to approximate pi as you need. But typically, that should be done after you have found volume in its most precise form. I have made these comments in my previous videos about square roots and other kind of symbols. The symbols are there to make your life easier, not harder. So I will just say I don't understand why we convert pi to 3.14. Now, I'm going to move forward to the next example. So, the volume of a pyramid is V equals 1/3 big B, or capital B, times H. Big B being the area of the base, and in this case, the area of a base is a rectangle. So that means that the area of the base, which is typically written as length times width. It can also be written as base times height, but it can be kind of confusing if you have 2 H's there. So we'll just keep it length times width. I mentioned this in the beginning of the video. I am not a huge fan of length, width, base, height, all of these labels. They can be confusing for beginner learners. What you need to recognize is that you have a pyramid and we have to multiply 3 sides together. And then you need to find those 3 sides. Then add 1/3 because the pyramid is 1/3 the size of a prism. Now, let's plug our information in and let's get this problem going. It does not matter where you plug in your 3 dimensions because the dimensions are multiplying. So if you accidentally had written the 11 first and the 4 last, it would not make a difference. My 4 times 7 times 11 times tables are a little weak, so I had to punch that in a calculator. Now 3 does not divide into 308 evenly, and if you know me, I will tell you just to keep the answer in the form of a fraction. Just like, we'll put the units this time because I know I forgot to do them last time. Just like with pi, you leave the answer in its most precise form, which is typically its easiest form. Okay, let's get on to the cylinder. The formula for the volume of the cylinder is V equals pi r squared, which is the area of a circle, adding a height. The difference here between the pyramid and the cylinder is, for one, in the pyramid, it's more like an altitude in the middle, which creates that pyramid shape. We don't have that here. This height is coming off the circumference and is perpendicular to, let's say, a radius or a diameter. So that's the big difference between a cylinder and a pyramid, if you were really burning to know. Now, I'm going to plug this in, and we're going to get V equals pi times 9 times 11, and now I'm just going to keep this 99 pi and just move on. We'll call this meters cubed, just for good measure. Some teachers make a big deal about adding the units cubed. I personally am not one of them, though I acknowledge the importance of adding units. Okay, now let's move on to the sphere. Alright, the volume of the sphere is V equals 4/3 pi r cubed. Be careful here. Students often write r squared, but you have to remember, or if this helps you remember, you have a three-dimensional object. That means cubed, as opposed to a two-dimensional object, which is squared. Now, let's plug in what we have. Just like in the example with the cone, we are given a diameter here, and so the radius is 2. I plugged that in, and 2 cubed, or 2 to the third power, is 8. Now, 8 times 4 is 32, and I bring the rest of the equation with it. Alright, couple of things to make notes of here before I conclude this video. For starters, if you insist on pi being 3.14, or if your teacher does as you're watching this video out in the universe somewhere, then what my recommendation is to move pi around and learn to do that. Then multiply your final answer by 3.14, converting the problem into a decimal. The other thing is, to master the volume formulas, you need to know your fraction rules. If you do not know your fraction rules, that will make this really difficult. So I guess the best solution I have for you there is get a good calculator that will help you with fractions, such as a TI-36X Pro. I've spoken about that calculator and the Casio 300 ES calculators. They are great calculators. I've spoken about them when I have done both trigonometry and the quadratic formula. Frankly, I think those calculators are more powerful than their graphing big brothers or sisters. However you want to go about that. Alright, guys, I hope you guys have found this video helpful.